Hello, my name is Nicole Carson-Bonnet and I'm a portrait photographer. I am so excited to be one of only 14 photographers worldwide to have earned the title of Fellow in the Portrait Masters International Awards and Accreditation Program. In this video, I'll show you how I went from scoring a 69 in my first round to winning gold with a score of 91 by my fourth round. And I'll show you all 153 portraits which led to Fellow in just over 2 years. And I'll also share some insights I wish I had known in the beginning as well as throughout my journey. But before we go any further, please do me a quick favor and click the like and subscribe buttons below. I earned my bachelor's degree in graphic design and advertising from Brigham Young University in 1998. My husband is also a designer and we have worked from a home studio running our graphic design business for the last 22 years. In 2014, I bought my first Canon, the Mark III, and I added commercial photography and videography to our creative services. Thanks to YouTube videos and online tutorials, I was able to now offer a complete visual package to our design clients. 3 years ago, in January of 2018, I saw a Facebook ad for Felix Kunz's lighting course, and I felt inspired to purchase it. Felix is amazing, and not only did I learn how to create soft portrait light, but I was also introduced to Sue Bryce education and a new world of creative fine art photography. Following what I considered divine inspiration, I converted my guest suite to a portrait studio, started building a studio wardrobe, and added portrait photography to my menu of creative services. As a member of Sue Bryce Education, I became aware of the Portrait Masters International Awards and Accreditation Program. The portraits I saw displayed in the top 20s took my breath away. And I learned that I could submit portraits and earn points to receive accreditation. This seemed like a good idea to legitimize my portrait business to potential clients. In July of 2019, I mustered up enough courage to enter 6 portraits in the Portrait Masters competition. I really had no idea if my portraits would be considered up to a professional standard. So I was elated to earn 5 bronzes and 1 score of 69, only 1 point away from a professional standard. Over the next several months, I continued to level up in my portrait work as I spent more time in the saddle shooting and experimenting with light. My portrait studio is about 11.5 feet wide and 15 feet long, which is not very big. I already had 3 Canon EX600 Speedlites I had used for commercial photography. So working with what I had, I did lots of experimenting to find the most minimal way of achieving soft portrait light in my small space. My most commonly used 3-light setup starts with a speedlight placed behind my backdrops and pointed at the ceiling with a mag sphere on top. This provides a soft hair light on top of the model when I want it. My second speedlight is placed against the white wall behind me with a mag bounce pointed away from my model. Set to a low power, this provides my soft fill light. My third speedlight is my key light and is pointed away from my model inside an inexpensive Westcott Apollo softbox that I already had. To soften the light even further, I sewed a double-lined cover from a white bedsheet and attached it to the front of the softbox. All the portraits I submitted to Portrait Masters were photographed with a combination of these 3 speedlights or occasionally with natural light. I would love to use larger strobes and gear, particularly those demonstrated in Felix's videos, but for now, this works with my small space. I painted a couple of new canvas backdrops and was gaining a better grasp on creating darker portraits. I included a link in the description below to my DIY video for my favorite method for painting my backdrops. I designed and made a few different throw skirts and experimented with adding more movement to my portraits. I submitted 26 portraits in the January 2020 round and I scored 3 bronze with distinctions, 23 bronzes, and 169 approaching professional standard. I was so excited. My highest score was a 78 on a portrait that had movement and character. This helped me start to recognize the difference between solid client work and fine art creative work that appeared to score higher points. Although my client portraits were earning money and scoring bronze with distinctions, I realized I would need to devote specific time and energy to creating fine art style portraits if I wanted to earn higher points. Not all of my paying clients were interested in creative fine art portraits. I was well on my way to earning my associate level accreditation, but realized it would most likely be done with bronze awards if I relied on my paid contemporary client photo shoots. As a graphic designer, I was trained to use creativity to achieve marketing objectives. To create portraits with more of a fine art feel to them, I had to just let my imagination wander. I tried to visualize the overall portrait as a work of art, not limited by reality. This was new and unfamiliar to me, but became easier with time. Over the next several months, unfortunately, COVID became a household name and Arizona went on lockdown in March of 2020. This was a blessing and a curse. As a blessing, it gave me more time to conceptualize for creative photo shoots. I was able to work with models I knew in my social circles and had so much fun pushing my creative photography boundaries. I submitted 27 portraits in the July 2020 Portrait Masters and couldn't believe I finally scored silver. And not just one, but 7. I couldn't believe it. I also scored 17 bronze with distinction and 3 bronze. It was confirmation that my skills were improving and that I was moving in the right direction. I had 5 portraits score a 78, which meant they were really close to silver, and I just wanted to push them over that 80-point line. I started sewing when I was 12 and considered a career in fashion design before choosing graphic design in college. My portrait business brought new exciting opportunities to use my fashion and seamstress skills for unlimited creativity. And most of my fabrics are repurposed bed sheets and curtains purchased from Goodwill, my local thrift store, along with most of my props. As I would shop at Goodwill and other thrift stores, I kept my eyes open for inspiration pieces. Many times it was a prop, a cool set of ruffled sheets, or a gorgeous color of bed sheets. Then I built characters around the inspiration pieces and scheduled the photo shoots. This was new territory for me and became a welcome creative distraction from the stress and anxiety of an emerging worldwide pandemic. Quarantine also inspired me to start my YouTube channel. Thankfully, my studio was in my home so I could continue to create. I started a playlist called Designing the Look from Idea to Portrait. I love watching shows like How It's Made and Project Runway and wanted to share my entire creative process. My videos include my initial idea for a photo shoot, a sketch of the outfit, and where I gather my supplies, which most of the time included bed sheets and curtains from Goodwill. Then I show how I make the outfit, the photo shoot, an editing overview, and then the final portraits. This has been such a fun creative outlet for me. I love sharing ways to work with repurposed items to make something unique and fantastic. There's no price on creativity, and we often limit our creativity based on our budgets. But with a little ingenuity, we can create much more than we realize. When Sue announced the new category called Opposites for this Portrait Masters round, I immediately dismissed the idea of entering. There are so many incredibly talented photographers who submit to Portrait Masters, and I didn't think I stood a chance. As with every morning before a Portrait Masters reveal with Sue, I make sure to go to the gym to work off my nervous energy. As I came home and logged into my account, a couple of my kids were home from quarantine and asked, "Mom, do you think you won any golds?" I responded, "Yeah, whatever. I can guarantee you I did not win a gold." When I logged in and saw a gold award next to my yin yang portrait, I about hit the floor. I could not believe it. Then I saw that it had won the Opposites category and we all started jumping up and down. It was such a thrill and completely unexpected. I had also won 11 silvers, 26 bronze with distinctions, and 5 bronze. Amidst creating portraits for this round, I purchased Richard Wood's Painterly Portraits and Creative Portraits series. I wanted to learn all that I could. Not only are his creative portraiture talents out of this world, but his courses really helped me see the amount of care and attention I would need to give to the smallest details in my portraits. I also learned how to enhance the lighting in post and how to achieve consistent lighting when compositing. I also purchased the Fashion series by Laura Jade. I love how she incorporates high-end lighting into her fashion photography. Even though I don't currently have any aspirations of becoming an editorial fashion photographer, I love adding a fashion and textile flair to my portraits. And her series was really awesome and very inspirational, and I highly recommend it. In this round, I experimented with developing portraits with stories and characters and animals in a variety of directions in hopes of earning higher points. Although I was over the moon about scoring a gold winning the Opposites category, I also felt very disappointed about how low several of my other portraits had scored, when I had hoped they would have scored higher. They had lots of story and character, but obviously didn't resonate with the judges to score silver. It was at this point I really wished I could have received some feedback from the judges. It would have been so helpful to know if I was lacking in concept lighting, or editing. This is an expensive process of learning, and some feedback would have been so helpful. But I just took it in stride and reminded myself that I had signed up for this and needed to take it for what it was. I had made the decision that submitting to Portrait Masters would be a source of creative fun, not a source of frustration or contention. I tried to look at each portrait humbly and objectively and take in what the judges were telling me by their scores. I chose to humbly accept the feedback and continue to improve and develop my eye for identifying and creating fine art photography. I had achieved my master accreditation and decided to keep moving forward to fellow. And of course, I hoped to get there with as few portraits as possible. I looked carefully at my portraits that were scoring silvers and figured they were my special sauce and decided to keep moving forward in that direction for future submissions. Ballet concepts with flowy fabric seemed to be my jam, which wasn't surprising because I grew up as a dancer and love fashion and textiles. In preparing for this round, I continued to brainstorm new and creative ways to portray ballet concepts. By now, I had developed relationships with a few local ballet studios. This made scheduling models easy, and I was able to work with some amazing young athletes. Having won a gold once, I figured lightning never strikes the same spot twice, so I kept realistic expectations that the stars may not align in the same way in the future, but I would continue to do my best and hope for the best. I submitted 32 portraits and received 15 silvers and 17 bronze with distinction. All my portraits scored 75 and above. This was amazing to me, and 14 of my portraits scored in the top 20s. It was truly surreal seeing my portraits now being displayed amongst amazing photographers who I respect and admire. I contacted a local restaurant who has exotic birds in large cages in their outdoor patio. They let me come and photograph these gorgeous birds, and I included them in a few of the portraits. I also had so much fun photographing various dogs from my neighborhood and did lots of compositing, adding them to the shots with my models. As a result of creating so many submissions, I had a fun body of work to share in my social media. I continued to make behind-the-scenes videos, and I was posting my silver portraits along with some of my bronze portraits that I also loved. I noticed I felt a bias against them based on my Portrait Master scores and didn't include their scores in my posts. But I found that the portraits with the highest Portrait Master scores were not always the portraits with the highest social media engagements. As I looked at my trends, I noticed a difference between judge pleasers and crowd pleasers. This was encouraging and helped offset the disappointment I had felt at some scores that were lower than I was hoping. These portraits were loved by me and by the general public, and I was proud to share them. But I also value and appreciate the scrutiny the judges gave to their evaluations of my portraits. That only helped me progress, improve, and push past self-imposed limits. An unexpected blessing came in the form of being voted Phoenix Magazine's Best Artist of 2021. I have the Portrait Masters to thank for this because my collection of creative fine art portraits that I had created for Portrait Masters were recognized among a variety of art forms in the state of Arizona. Preparing for the September 2021 Portrait Masters round felt like coming into the home stretch. I had 85 points and only needed 15 points to reach fellow. Based on my recent stats, I placed a personal bet that if I could submit 20 portraits, I could possibly make fellow. In the end, I had 19 portraits to submit and ended up scoring 16.5 points. I earned 14 silvers and 5 bronze with distinctions. I also ended up winning the teen and pet categories. I had the same score as the winner of the Into the Wild category, so I still consider that a win. Wow, what a way to earn fellow. When Sue announced the challenge of Into the Wild, I immediately thought of going to a local animal park, and I randomly messaged them through Facebook. As luck would have it, the woman who monitors their Facebook account is also a photography student. I explained the mission I was on, and she offered to drive me around the park to photograph the animals in exchange for a lesson on portrait photography. Deal! She came to my studio, and then a few weeks later, my family and I were cruising around photographing animals at the park. It was tricky to shoot through the fences, but I couldn't and wouldn't want to get inside the habitats with them. I rented a long lens and had to patiently wait to find animals who were in the shade at the right angles that I knew I could composite later. It was an unforgettable experience. And with this catalog of animal photos, it was so much fun compositing them together with my model portraits to create new concepts. I have met some incredible women throughout my life who have had to battle breast cancer. Inspired by them, I did several photo shoots in a series I titled Portraits of Hope. 2 of my dance portraits within my breast cancer series won the teen and pet categories. I believe it was because I created a story or a character that maybe hasn't been seen yet, which seems to be vital to receiving higher scores. I am so grateful the Portrait Masters started offering feedback on submissions for an additional $5. I selected this option for several of my submissions and really appreciated their comments. In a few cases, they mentioned trouble areas I hadn't even considered or noticed. One of my favorite quotes Sue Bryce has shared is the aphorism, "The tide raises all boats." The intense experience I've had competing in the Portrait Masters over the last 2 years has improved my technical lighting skills as well as my editing skills exponentially. I now use these skills on a daily basis, and it has raised the quality of work I produce across the board. I want to thank all the judges of the Portrait Masters for all of their time and effort, and I trust that they are only trying to elevate our abilities as photographers. And I want to thank Sue Bryce for pioneering such an amazing program and for raising all boats in the photography industry. If you're not currently a student of Sue Bryce Education, I highly recommend you consider enrolling. If you're on the fence about submitting to Portrait Masters, I highly encourage you to give it a try. You have nothing to lose and so much to gain. And if you're experiencing any frustrations or roadblocks along your journey, I highly encourage you to keep trying, keep experimenting. Do something different today than you did yesterday. And most importantly, do not limit yourself on what you think you can create, because light is light and creativity is free. And yes, you can. I hope you enjoyed this video and it inspires you to keep moving forward. And please don't leave without clicking the like and subscribe buttons below. And feel free to browse my YouTube channel and check out my behind the scenes videos to my creative process.